What's up, you guys? This is Brian from the Boopinion, and today we're going to be talking about Mario Odyssey. Now, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about Mario Odyssey at this point in time because, as you guys have heard and seen, such as my friend Kirk, Jigsaw Flux's channel, there's been a rumor for a while that there's going to be some 3D Mario games remastered and put out maybe on one game or like all of them released in some fashion on the Switch. So I thought it'd be appropriate instead to look at what Super Mario Odyssey 2 would be like. And before we get into that, I want to first kind of just reflect on how I felt about the first game. Overall, I enjoyed the game. If you want like a rankings for me, I would say that it's ahead of Sunshine, even though I have a lot of nostalgia for that, but I would still put Galaxy 1 and 2 over it. And I guess I would say that it's a better game than Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, but it's just still hard for me to put this game over Sunshine and 64 just because those games just felt like they had a much better theme and connectivity compared to this game, which is my big problem with it. And I just felt like they didn't really pace out the content properly for everywhere, such as some of the kingdoms. They just didn't really. They weren't all the same shape and sizes. The kingdoms weren't equal in terms of the content that they had. For instance, kingdoms like the Ruin Kingdom, it was just so empty compared to the other kingdoms. The Mushroom Kingdom had 104 moons, while the Ruin Kingdom only had 10. And then the last kingdom in the game, if you haven't played it, I wouldn't watch this part, but the last kingdom in the game, the moon and the dark side of the moon, only had 63 moons combined. So it didn't really make sense to me why the last place just felt so empty. It's just this weird concept where I don't think Nintendo really knows how to have stuff on a moon. If you look at my rankings video for Paper Mario 1000 Year Door, the moon on that chapter felt empty, and it reminded me of this chapter when I was going over it, because like they could have just had so much stuff on the moon, and it just felt so empty to me. I don't know why they didn't put more on it. But honestly, it kind of just seems like a trend that Nintendo is going in, where they have these huge open world games, but they don't know that the story just doesn't seem like it was as good as it was in the previous games. Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey both have huge worlds, but they're not filling it out. Like, they'll have a ton of stuff to do in the beginning, and then they'll have some stuff at the end, but the middle part in those games, where it's just all over the place, they need to kind of go back to the roots and pace out the content properly. Going off of that, for the route that I think Super Mario Galaxy 2 would go, now that you've kind of seen what my main issue with the first game is, which is connectivity, I would say there's two ways they can go with this. They have the easy way and the better way, in my opinion. So I'm going to go over the easy way first. What I would say the easy, lazy way they could go is kind of just have like what Super Mario Galaxy 2 was like, and that it kind of just felt like a giant DLC to Super Mario Galaxy 1. And I guess they would kind of do that with this game, where they still have the same structure set up. They would probably even make it more level based like that, and it's kind of just like adding on similar kingdoms that the first game had, but maybe even more stars or more moons than the first one, and maybe they involve Yoshi more, have Luigi, and still have Bowser as the main villain. But they wouldn't drastically change that much for the game. Now, I'm just going to throw this out here. This is what I would personally want to see. This isn't a objective fact of what would make the game better. This is just how I feel like the game could get much better if they were to make a second Odyssey. So what I would want them to do is they need to make it more cohesive, like Super Mario Sunshine or Super Mario 64. I feel like they're kind of like limiting themselves. But ever since Super Mario Galaxy 1, it's just been, hey, Mario's in space and he's going to go to this planet, or this kingdom and this kingdom. But what if they just made an entire new universe that's like a parallel universe compared to the Mario universe? Instead of having a Mario level or a Mario kingdom, it's an entire Mario planet. This is how I would envision it. They would have like a Sunshine planet where they have all the levels from Super Mario Sunshine, and a Mario 64 planet where it's literally the entire Mushroom Kingdom. I think you could still have a big game. What I've just said would make it a big game, but I don't think they need to have as many moons just for the sake of having moons. Breaking it down, there were 880 moons without buying any in Super Mario Odyssey, whereas in Super Mario Galaxy 2 there were 242 stars. In Super Mario Sunshine there were 120 shine sprites and 120 stars in Super Mario 64, and 121 in Galaxy. So I just feel like if you look at all those games and you look at the ones that people really love, such as 64, Sunshine, and First Galaxy, they had about between 100 and 300 stars to get. So I think personally between 200 and 300 stars or moons or shine sprites, whatever the object Mario is getting, I think 200 to 300 is the right number for it to be. So now that we've talked about kind of how the game would be set up, I thought the next thing to pivot to would be the power-ups for Mario, which is probably the biggest difference between Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Odyssey. So if you're not familiar with Super Mario Odyssey, you didn't have power-ups per se, you kind of just took over whatever enemy was in place in front of you, such as the most famous instance is the T-Rex, as shown in the trailer, and then you had like Hammer Bros, Goombas. Oddly enough, this is the first game that they didn't really have boos in this game at all, which is kind of shocking and weird given that I just did a video on a game dedicated entirely to boos. But how I think they should go about the power-ups for Super Mario Odyssey 2 is you can still have Cappy, because he's one of the main characters in a way. Instead of adding power-ups again like Super Mario Galaxy, I think the route they could go to still keep Cappy as a main part of the game would be to add enemies that would be the same thing as power-ups from Super Mario Galaxy. Like you could have a spring enemy, you could have the Boo, any other power-up that's missing that hasn't been before, you could just add as an enemy, and then you would take over the enemy instead of having the power-up. So they could bring back Bee Mario, Boo Mario, Spring Mario, anything like that. Characters-wise, for this game, you still gotta have Mario, you still gotta have Cappy. Obviously, Bowser's gotta be in at this point. You always gotta have Bowser, he's just the main part of Mario, and I don't have a problem with that. They don't always need to have him as the main villain at the end of the game, so my suggestion would be to have him mid-game, and have an entirely new villain at the end of the game. Now going back to what I said before, where it's like a parallel Mario universe, I think you could have like this truly evil villain that is trying to take over the entire universe or something, kind of like a Thanos-like character, like Count Black from Super Paper Mario. But if you don't want to go that dark, I totally understand that, Nintendo, and you could instead build upon the rabbits that you introduced in Super Mario Odyssey, which was just very random, but maybe you could expand upon their story and bring them back. Aside from villains, I would also bring back Rosalina. You could have her on one of the planets I mentioned, and then maybe Flood and Bowser Jr. on the Super Mario Sunshine planet. Getting into the story goes back to the two different routes I said they could go in, which would be the lazy route or this off the bonkers thing I just came up with. If they go the lazy route, then you could just kind of have it like a DLC mode, which is what Galaxy 2 is like. But if you go in the completely different direction, I would move past Bowser. You can still have him mid-game, and at the end of the game, it's either the rabbits or the new villain taking over the universe, like I said. Lastly, for the design, I'd still keep the design like Super Mario Odyssey, but incorporate more stuff from the past games from 64 Sunshine, and you gotta make it more cohesive, which is why I did the planet idea instead of kingdoms or levels, because then everything you do on the planet, it's all tied together. Which I guess is kind of what Mario Odyssey was like, but I would properly balance this out more. Like each planet would have like 60 stars to do, or now that I'm thinking about that, if I had like 300 stars, I would actually I'd have like 10 planets and 30 stars for each place, but the stars would be purposeful for each place, and I'd still keep the Odyssey design on the whole. Wrapping up this video, I wanted to talk about what I think makes a good 3D Mario game. I think you gotta have unique levels, you gotta incorporate new bosses. Aside from Bowser, You could still have Bowser, but I just want them to add a new villain every now and then because everyone loves the villains. You gotta explore the game, but you don't want to have too much to do like Odyssey, and it's got to be cohesive. Like the perfect example is Super Mario 64, where it's all just in one castle. The biggest thing I want you guys to take away from this is what comes next from this space theme. Is Mario always going to be exploring places in space, or are we going to return to a new world, or like 64 or Sunshine, which I guess could be another video. But for now, I would say they're still going to keep the space idea, but I think they need to expand it even more and not just go from planet to planet, but an entire new universe. That's what I would want in Odyssey 2. I think you can still keep many of the elements from Odyssey 1, but just kind of blow it up even more. But that doesn't mean you have to have like 1,000 moons to get. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.